Thank you for tuning into Your Dose podcast. This series is sponsored by the Community Foundation of Greater New Britain. CFGNB connects donors who care with causes that matter. Their mission is to inspire philanthropy, manage permanent charitable assets, and address key community issues through strategic leadership. If you're interested in sponsoring our Your Dose podcast, make sure to follow the link below.
Welcome back to Your Dose. We're the plug for all things prevention.
And today I'm your host, Israel Dandrade, and with me we have...
I'm Annalise Jones.
Hi, I'm Nico. I'm in 7th grade in Pulaski Middle School.
And today's prescription is philanthropy and youth involvement. And we have a special guest, Kaylah Milligan.
Hi, I'm Kaylah. I'm the Director of Philanthropy at the Community Foundation of Greater New Britain.
And to break the ice, we're going to start off with a question, because not everyone might not be familiar with exactly the definition of philanthropy. I have trouble pronouncing, as you can see, but could you describe to us what philanthropy is?
Yeah, of course. So at its core, philanthropy is just about giving back. We talk a lot about time, talent, and treasure. So that could mean using your expertise in something you know a lot about. That could mean using your time, sitting on a board or volunteering in person. And it could also mean giving money.
I thought philanthropy was strictly money, so that's actually new information for me. I didn't realize that volunteerism is actually a form of philanthropy. So,
my title is Director of Philanthropy, and sometimes I feel like I have kind of this push and pull with it, because I do have a problem with the fact that people don't see themselves in philanthropy. It sounds like the Bill Gates Foundation giving $1 million or naming a room after your family, but philanthropy can be $1. It could be 10 minutes volunteering at a food pantry. It is really finding what resonates for you and figuring out how you want to give back to your community.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
So really anything you do really matters for everyone,
As small as you think it might be.
Small cause, right?
It's philanthropy.
Yeah. So we're all considered philanthropists, I guess.
You are.
We
Yeah.
do tons of community involvement, community volunteering. So
Absolutely. You are all philanthropists, 100%.
All right. So when you talk about philanthropy, what are some ways that you specifically help the community through your job?
So I feel like it needs a little bit of background, because I think a lot of people don't know what a community foundation is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, we hear about the Gates Foundation, these really, really big organizations. The Community Foundation was established 80 years ago, and it was specifically established by two businesses that wanted to have a community chest for if something ever happened in New Britain, and it grew over time. And the nice thing about a community foundation is it isn't just one donor. We have over 350 different funds. Those are individuals and families, businesses, organizations that have decided that they want to give back to their community in some way. That could be establishing a scholarship. That could be establishing a fund that will always give to, say, the YWCA every year. And it could also be a fund that they establish and say, I want this to be used for the greatest need in our community. And those funds are committee at the Community Foundation is able to see every year what's going on, what are the needs, and then we have the ability to use those funds to help out. So the beautiful thing about the Community Foundation is that we give to basically everything, you name it: arts and culture, health and human services, community and economic development, education. And the amazing thing is that we are able to work alongside all of these 350 different families and folks and individuals. And together, we all give out about $2.5 million a year.
oh, wow.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And so when you think about some of those projects, that could be something like the Hospital of Central Connecticut has a program that's for teen parents and helping them to finish their degree. And they just found out like a month or so ago that they weren't going to have the funding for those students to graduate. So we were able to give some money, and I was also able to talk to some of our donors and say, hey, this is something that could really use some funding. And they were able to make sure that that program continued. The Community Foundation serves New Britain, Berlin, Plainville, and Southington. So every community foundation serves what we call a catchment area, which is really just whatever community it serves. So there are a lot of programs we do in New Britain. One really awesome program that we did with Southington Bread for Life, which is an organization that helps feed the hungry, is that they realized that some of the clients that they were serving had this gap of workforce development skills. So a lot of people were coming because they were hungry, but they didn't have the skills to get a job. So they decided to create what's called a micro enterprise. It's really just kind of like a side hustle for the nonprofit. And they started keeping bees and they created a honey company. So they have the Southington Honey Company. So now the clients that they serve are now learning beekeeping, merchandising, being entrepreneurs because they sell all of the honey in, farmers markets or around town. And so we are able to help find these really unique ways to help serve the people in our community. I think the Community Foundation is very, very lucky because we have so many funds available to be able to find those niches and figure out where those gaps are in our community. We actually worked with CCSU not too long ago where they realized a lot of the students that they had that were in like their junior or senior year might only need $500, $1,000 to finish paying off their education, but they can't go back to school because they owe that $500 or $1,000. So what we were able to do is start a degree completion initiative, which works alongside CCSU and now Charter Oak to identify those students who might just need $500 so that they can graduate. And so we are able to help identify those needs. And we always joke, we've had this slogan for years that we connect donors who care with causes that matter. But at its crux, that's what we do.
Wow. Yeah, it seems like you guys really make an impact. That's really interesting to hear about. I'm familiar with the New Bern High School Community Foundation scholarship. Um, a lot of students are actually presented the scholarship at the scholarship ceremony recently. I didn't apply. I swear, I thought I applied, but I didn't. So that was like the biggest oof that I ever made. But
You always got to apply, right?
yeah, I applied to so many, but not this one. I was like, bro. But could you tell us a little bit about that specific scholarship? Because I'm sure a lot of this audience is actually New Bern High School students, and I know personally a lot of people who got this scholarship.
The one that is for the New Britain High School Foundation scholarship.
Yes.
So that one's interesting. So, like I said, we have a ton of funds. I can't even tell you how many scholarship funds we have specifically, but that fund was established by the New Britain High School Foundation years ago. And the whole process really goes through New Britain High School. So the benefit of the Community Foundation is that we have an endowment, and base level, an endowment is like a long-term savings account for an organization. So that means that when people put money into it, we invest it and we help those funds to grow. And we only give back a little bit of that money each year so that we can continue to grow it. And we call that a spending policy. So the New Britain High School Foundation years ago established this fund with us so that they could benefit from having an endowment to grow that fund. And so that every year they have more and more money available for scholarships. So I know that we have quite a few scholarships that go specifically to New Britain High School, but we also have a number of scholarships that might be available to, say, New Britain, Berlin, and Plainville students. So there's a little bit of a distinction with how the application process works, and for a lot of those, what the requirements are for a scholarship. Because one of the goals for us is that we work with a donor to try and figure out what resonates with them. If it was a donor who became an engineer, they might want to establish a scholarship that is specifically for engineering students. Or if they were a student who grew up in New Britain and went to New Britain High, then it's specifically for New Britain students. So there's a lot of different variations on the scholarships that New Britain High students are available or are eligible for. For our process at the Community Foundation, we have a wholly electronic process that includes an eligibility quiz to try and help students to identify what scholarships they're eligible for, because there are so many. So when you take this eligibility quiz, it'll ask you, what school are you going to? What town do you live in? What is your major? And then it'll narrow it down so that if you wanted to apply for any of those scholarships, you're applying for something that you're actually eligible for. And it, saves you the time and energy.
Nice.
Yeah, I missed out on that. For college students, is that available for them too?
So again, because we kind of call ourselves a boutique foundation in that way, because again, if there was a donor who decided I wanted to establish a scholarship for current college students, um, they can do that as well. Most of our scholarships tend to be for students who are in their first year of college, but we have a number of them, and we talk to donors more and more now about really the necessity for having more funds for continuing education, because it's a lot harder for students to be able to find scholarship opportunities while they're in college.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
definitely a gap.
Yeah, definitely. I know a lot of people who are struggling with, coming up with that kind of money, especially when you're not working during school or trying to prioritize your learning. It's definitely something that needs to be taken more into consideration. I agree.
Say that louder for some of the donors who might want to start a
Yeah,
fund.
yeah, if you want to donate,
Yeah, if you want to start a fund, make it for continuing education for current college students.
Yeah.
yeah, definitely beneficial.
So you talk a little bit about connecting with donors and kind of getting them interested in creating a fund. So what is that process like for you and for them? Like how, if someone's interested in starting a fund or interested in going into a career like yours?
Well, I think those are they're two separate questions, but they kind of go along together. I know
Yeah, what does it
from
look like from your perspective? And then what would it look like from a donor's perspective?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it is really relationship building and understanding what someone is looking to do. The last thing we want to do is establish a fund that doesn't align with what a donor wants to do. So it's really meeting with someone and just hearing about their life, about their charitable goals, and what they want to see happen. And it's really tailoring it to that person. So from my perspective, it's just asking a lot of questions about what they're looking to do, and then telling them some of the experiences and some of the funds that we already have so that we can narrow it down and say, here's an example of something that somebody did. Here's a different example. What fits what you're looking for, and really giving the donor the ability to, like I said, narrow it down, make it personal, and make sure that it's relevant and resonates with them. I think a lot of our donors, kind of in the same way, like don't understand that philanthropy is for everyone. We at the foundation have a fund minimum for most of our funds at $5,000, which is a chunk of money. But if you were going to start a fund at the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, you need more like $25,000, $50,000. So we really try to make philanthropy accessible. If you want to start that $5,000 fund and put in $1,000 each year, that's accessible. That is something that you could really, truly build towards. And I think when we start to have these conversations with donors about the possibilities of what they can do, I think that that's a real benefit, because if you are thinking about starting a fund, thinking about how you give, we are able to really open up their understanding of what their potential could be and what they could really do in the community.
Um, Working a lot with City Hall and like community service department, I've become familiar with the word like grant. A lot of people I work with are always applying for like grants. Do they apply for grants through you, or like are you the facilitator? Like I just have a little question on that.
Like me personally, or through the foundation?
Just through the foundation.
Yeah. So we give out tons of grants in all different ways. Like I said, we could have a donor that has their own fund and they decide each year who they want to give to. That's what the New Britain Youth Leads Fund is. It's, you guys are able to say each year, these are the things that are important to us and these are the causes that we want to support in that community. There's not really a grant application process for that. But for our larger grants, sometimes we give out 10, 20, 50, $100,000 grants. We do have an online grants process that someone would first submit what we call a letter of intent, which is a way to kind of cull down and see if this is something that our committee would be interested in funding. And then we invite a full application that would really outline what is the project going to do, what are the outcomes that you're looking for, how much is it going to be, and do you have other funders? Do you have other partners? Really trying to figure out, is this a project or something that will help this community? So they would go through us.
Okay. Um. Also, in the whole community foundation, what are the different breakdowns of the job titles that you guys have? So you're more of like an outreach kind of person, I assume. But like, what other jobs do they have?
That's a good question. So our foundation is pretty small staff wise. There's only 7 of us. So we have a president and CEO, we have a vice president and CFO, we have an accounting manager, we have an administrative assistant. And then in terms of the programs and the outreach, we have oh my gosh, our titles change all the time. I'm the director of philanthropy. We have a director of community initiatives and program services, and we have a program officer and a communications officer. So most of our staff, because we're so small, we're all helping each other with a lot of stuff. So we work collaboratively a lot. But I think what is really interesting is I had no idea that there was a job like this when I was a kid. My first home was down the street from the Boys and Girls Club. And before my family ended up moving to Bristol, I still ended up in New Britain all the time, mostly at New Britain Rockcat games. Like I spent my childhood growing up there, and my favorite part was when they would pass the helmet. And I'm one of 6 kids, and we didn't have a ton of money or anything, but my mom would give us each $1 to put in there. And I remember being, 5, 6, 7, 10, 12, and being so excited to put my dollar in and see all the other dollars that were in there too. And I think that when I was a child, I didn't realize that there was a job that could do that, that could put all of these people's funds together and be able to give back. And when I was at CCSU, I ended up, I sang in one of the choirs, and they had asked me, hey, there's a donor that's looking to give to the music department. Would you be willing to meet them and talk to them? And I said, okay, sure. And that was my first time talking to a donor, which anybody is a donor, right? Anybody who gives $1 is a donor. But this was somebody, he went to CCSU and he eventually started his own music scholarship at CCSU. And he was the first person who I talked to who I could see myself in, because he used to be a student at CCSU. He was somebody from Connecticut. And that was a light bulb moment for me of, wow, you can start from humble beginnings and be able to get to that place where you eventually, name a huge scholarship. And what does that look like? And because of that experience, and I worked with the Alumni Association at CCSU, they kind of then made me not a poster child, but okay, we've got another donor. Kaylah, do you want to meet with them and talk to them? And after I graduated, I had someone in that office say, hey, there's this job at the Community Foundation. And I was like, the what? And they said, no, it's a part-time job as an administrative assistant. You might be able to use some of the skills that you've developed, like working with donors. And so I applied for the position right out of college, and I've been there for 12 years. I have not left. I've had 18,000 different titles, but throughout the whole time that I've been there, I have always been able to talk to and work with donors, and talk to and work with our nonprofits. And I think that's part of the reason that I've stayed so long, is because I love what I get to do. And I didn't know that that was a career path.
Yeah. Cool.
That's great.
How about for the youth? How young can someone get into a scholarship for? Like for me, example, I'm in 7th grade, I have a long way to go. I've 6 years.
Who's
maybe
counting?
5, yeah. 5, 6 years until I graduate high school. Go to college, I should start saving right now, because that's a smart idea. Get funds in, right? Plan for the future. So how young do you think you can get a scholarship?
How young can you receive a scholarship? So for us, most of our scholarships are for high school and college students. However, there are a lot of different programs that we fund that helps. I know we're working with the city of New Britain. We just helped funded the downtown players. We had a fund that was interested in funding that. So they help students with programs. So some students don't have to pay for it because it'll subsidize it, but there aren't direct scholarships for students who are younger.
It's just good to
it's
know,
a great thought.
Yeah.
Start saving now. 529 plans are a great thing.
Yeah, you could start applying for scholarships your junior year though, so keep that in mind. Yeah.
We don't have any that you can apply for your junior year, but I'm sure
Yeah.
There's
are
someone out
things.
there.
Oh, there's someone for everything, you know?
So could you give us a little background on? Oh, you already kind of did, but could you further like?
How did you really start?
At my job?
Yeah. Like, how did you really get into philanthropy?
How did I really get into it? I think part of it was that connection with CCSU and having somebody who said, this is a career opportunity. And when I first started, I was like, oh, it's a part-time job. You know, it was something after I graduated, and I thought, you know, I'll do it for now. But I think what really got me into it was, one, getting to know the community, because I have so many connections now with people and organizations. And I think that that's what really had me kind of hooked, because the more I got to know some of the donors, the more I got to know some of the organizations. You know, those are places that I give personally to, and people that I have donors now that give my kids like birthday gifts. But it's because there's this community that you build. And a lot of times we talk about, you know, giving. A lot of times people give to causes, but they more so give to people, right? You give to a food pantry because you want to give to those people.
You want to
and
help.
those people. So we talk about that a lot too, because like I'm just a person who can try and help facilitate. But it's my job to try and be as knowledgeable as I can about what's going on in the community, so that when somebody comes to me and says, I have $1,000 to spend, what's going on? I can say, I know that there's this project, and this project that have recently come to me. I can talk to some of my staff too and see if there's any other ideas that they have. And I think that's when it really clicked for me that I can be this, this like conduit. I can be this person who can help to connect these two things. If somebody doesn't know where to give their money, I can try and help them.
Yeah. We know that there is different descriptions of funds. Us as youth prevention, we have our own fund actually. Could you break down the differences of funding and like what that looks like?
The different types of funds?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the easiest one to comprehend is like scholarship, right? Somebody says, I want this scholarship that will serve students at X school who have X eligibility criteria, this major or this financial need. Then we have donor advised funds, which is what the Youth Prevention Council has, the New Britain Youth Leads Fund. And that is the kind of fund where every year you can decide where you would like your spending policy, right? The amount available you have to spend that year, where you want it to go to. Another type of fund that we have is called a designated fund, which means that you sign the fund agreement and you say, every single year, I want the funds to go to the Boys and Girls Club of New Britain. No questions asked. We also have what we call field of interest funds. So that can say, I want a fund that will support youth in New Britain. So that when our grants committee goes out and sees what are the grant applications that have come in, we can say, oh, we have funds here for the summer enrichment experience in New Britain schools. And that's similar to our discretionary funds, which are funds where a donor says, greatest area of need, whatever you need to do, you do it. And again, those go through our grants committee and we're able to use those funds. A nice thing about the Community Foundation of Greater New Britain is that we have a lot of discretionary funds and field of interest funds. So that means that while we do have quite a few that are donor directed, where the donor says where they want it to go, or designated, where it's always going to the same place, a lot of the funding that we have available each year is funding that our grants committee can decide how to direct
where
it's going to go.
Trusting your judgment, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we really heavily rely on our community volunteers because they have boots on the ground too to figure out, okay, what are the programs that really need help? And also getting the outreach, right? Because there are people who are going to apply every year, but it's also our job to try and get in touch with some of the organizations that might not even know that we exist.
Yeah.
And so visibility is a huge thing. It's great for visibility for donors to see us, but it's amazing for visibility for nonprofits to see us and know that we are there and that we can help.
Is there any other foundations like you guys?
Yeah, so Connecticut has, oh, I don't even know how many right now, but over 10, maybe close to 20 community foundations. So as I mentioned, community foundations are all place-based. So the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, they serve Hartford and 29 towns also around Hartford. The Main Street Community Foundation is in Bristol, and they serve a bunch of communities around Bristol. And then, Community Foundation of Greater New Britain, as I mentioned, is New Britain, Berlin, Plainville, and Southington.
And you guys just cover those towns particularly, and no one else covers us?
So that's an interesting thing because there's a little crossover. Like every once in a while, we'll have a donor that says they want a scholarship that will help students in New Britain or Newington. And Newington isn't in our catchment area, but we still work with the school guidance counselors in Newington to help promote the scholarship. Mm-hmm. And an interesting thing about community foundations is that while our purpose is to try and support New Britain, Berlin, Plainville, and Southington, if we have a donor advised fund, say for whatever reason, New Britain Youth Leads said, there's a really great program in Hartford, and we really want to support it because they're partnering with us on this. You could give to Hartford. If you wanted to, you could give a grant to California. We can give to any 501c3, any nonprofit.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah. So it is fun because we partner a lot too with other community foundations for like statewide efforts. We have the Connecticut has what's called the Council of Philanthropy, and it's a group that brings together all of the different funders in the state. And so there's a CEO network where all of the CEOs from community foundations meet up regularly to talk about what's going on, to see how we can partner together. Because as much as it's a wonderful thing for us to support this specific community, we realize that there are problems that are overreaching, not even just our area, not even just Connecticut, but it could be nationwide. So we are always looking to partner and to maximize the impact that we can have.
So I know you mentioned earlier on that philanthropy is not just about funds, so time and treasure, you said. So what are some ways that the Community Foundation engages in philanthropy without spending a lot of money?
So I think the big thing for that is partnering and collaboration. We work, like I mentioned, with a lot of volunteers in our area. And I think one of the things that we do that maybe not other foundations have really done is we want to help and build up our young folks. One of our initiatives is the Young Philanthropy Initiative, and which is why I'm so excited to be here, because we want everyone to know that philanthropy doesn't have an age. And the younger you learn about this, the more you learn about this, the more opportunities you have to give back in your community. I think there are a lot of young people who want to find a way to do that. The first thing that we've done, and we've started to try and build it up, is we have what's called Giving Brews Day. So it's 21 plus, sorry guys. Mm-hmm. But every year we have an event on Giving Tuesday, which is the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. It's a national day of giving. And the focus of that day really is about the treasure, right? It really is about giving money. But we said, okay, say someone doesn't have the ability to give right now. What can we do to help promote and help make people know that like giving your time and your talent is just as powerful? So every year on Giving Tuesday, we have Giving Brews Day at Five Churches Brewery. And we bring out a bunch of nonprofits, and we have kind of like a nonprofit fair, but we gamify it. So everyone gets a passport that has all of the different organizations that are there. And the purpose is to interact with each of those organizations. So every time you interact with one, you get a stamp on your passport, and then you can win prizes and all types of stuff. But I feel like that is one of the main ways that we try to say, like, of course, we want you to be a donor. We want you to give whatever you are able to give, but also recognizing the power of that talent and treasure. So talent and time. So what we do is we talk to these organizations and say, make sure you have a QR code available for your website or a volunteer list of opportunities so that people can see how they can actually get involved. Not just here's our annual report and here's an envelope to give us a check. And we've gotten really, really good like turnout and feedback from the nonprofits and from the people who attend, because a lot of nonprofits are looking for people who will volunteer, whether it's at the food pantry, whether it's on their board or a committee. So it has been a really good way for us to try and connect folks without having it be all about money.
I'm interested in the talent aspect. Like, I have a little more questions about it. Say like I'm a group of like entertainers, and they're maybe interested in like giving back to like maybe a programming, after school programming, or a youth group, and they maybe want to perform for them for free. Like they just want to give their time. Would they go through you as well?
I mean, the nice thing about the foundation is that like we have people who have connections all over the place. So someone comes to us and says, hey, we have a performing group that wants to give their time for free. We can go to a bunch of different nonprofits, the school district, whoever, and say, hey, anybody interested in this? I think community foundations really pride themselves as being conveners. We are a place where you can come to us and we can hopefully give you some resources. One of my favorite recent thing is we had a nonprofit executive director show up one Monday morning, and she's like winded at the door. And I'm like, girl, what's going on? She's like, our building got run out by squirrels. I was like, what? She's like, it sounds like the E train in New York. I can't even focus. Like there are squirrels all in my building and I don't know what to do.
Oh, wow.
And I think a lot of people wouldn't imagine that that would be part of like the day at a foundation, is that someone would be asking me, what do we do? But we're going, okay, can we help them with an emergency grant to get a new location? Because like, have you already tried extermination? Okay, do we know anybody in the community that has rental space available? And we sat and we worked and we tried to figure out, okay, by the time she left, we had a couple of different options for places for her to go, and we had money readily available for her to use for an emergency need. And we were like, if you need to get more, let us know. We'll try and talk to donors and see what we can do. So you don't know what kind of questions you're going to get. So, I mean, that's a good case scenario that like a performing group wants to come and bring it to bring their services to someone. But yeah, it's an interesting place to be.
What does your average like work day look like?
That's another good question.
You come in, sit down, probably look through all the requests, donors, all that, right?
Yeah, so it kind of comes in waves, because we have grant committee meetings that we kind of let me backtrack. So we have different rounds of grant making. So depending on what time of year it is, we might be reviewing grant requests. I think on a daily basis for me, it's a lot of talking with donors. Like I said, we have a number of donor advised funds. So constantly, daily, throughout the year, we have donor advisors that say, hey, I want to make this grant to the city of New Britain. And so we process the grant. And what that looks like on my end is that I put the grant into our system. Then I reach out to the organization and say, here is a grant letter letting you know that you've just been awarded $1,500. Sign our terms and agree to it, and we'll send you the check. So I think a lot of it for us is grant making in that sense, where it's, you get the application, you process the application, you send it to the organization. But for me, I just mentioned that I came back from a golf tournament today. But you're talking with donors. You're talking with, in my position too, a lot of times, it could be talking with a lawyer, somebody who has a client that is interested in starting a fund, or a financial advisor answering questions. But a lot of times it's just, I just got an email from one of my coworkers who works with a volunteer who said, hey, I actually think I might want to start a fund. What do I do? And she goes, hey, here's Kaylah. She's CC'd here. Talk to her if you want to start a fund. And it's having the exact conversation that I mentioned, where I say, all right, tell me everything. Mm-hmm. And we can go from there and really try and work to figure out, how do we make your charitable goals happen?
Do you feel like in your work there's certain times of the years where you're slumped or like super busy, or where things slow down?
Yeah, I'm hoping that comes this summer. But usually, yeah, because we schedule, committee meetings and board meetings, and we usually take a little break over the summer on those meetings, because part of it is that we are a 501 501c3 as well. And so there are certain things that we have to do to keep up with our IRS status. And so, constantly getting things approved by our board. And also we want to maintain those like roots in the community. So working with our volunteers a lot, but I think a lot of people go away over the summer. And so it is really a better game plan to take a little bit of a break on that. But I think that's kind of like a less of a busy time for us, but it doesn't really stop because we always have people who want to give.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
And we're always giving out grants. We do have one, we call it our CLF, our Civic Leadership Fund, and that's an annual appeal. So every year we send that out towards the end of the year, and that's kind of a big project. But it comes in waves.
Are you guys grant funded?
We're not.
I was gonna say that would have been ironic.
All of our funding comes from the donors, the individuals, and the businesses that establish a fund. So what happens is someone decides to establish a fund, and there is a fee that's associated with it. So the fee is what helps us to keep going.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
So this is like our last question. How can youth or anyone listening to this podcast get involved in philanthropy?
I think that the biggest thing is you can start as small as you want. That big word, that big P word, philanthropy can be as simple as that dollar in the hat or the helmet. But I know a lot of folks go to church, same thing, passing that $1. I think that youth need to know that they can lead change too. You guys are proof of that right here. And I think a lot of people readily accept, if you're in the Interact Club and that's a volunteer group, or Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, but there's so much that you can do outside of that too. It's signing up for that 5K. They just had the Connecticut Breast Health Initiative race in the park, or all of the different Hartford Marathon fundraisers. How many GoFundMes are out there? If you want to start getting involved in your community, you already know somebody who's there. Like I said, whether it's a soup kitchen, a food pantry, mentoring another student, even if you don't get volunteer hours for it, it is the time that you spend to try and make your community a better place.
To close out, we normally end with like our closing remarks or like one thing you would like to leave the audience with. So yeah, we could do that now. I could start because I've been thinking about it a little bit. I would just like the audience to understand. I know that we have a heavier youth targeted audience, so I just learned today that everyone who donates their time, not only money but also their time, is a philanthropist. So I encourage everyone to be a philanthropist yourself. Join a club that has volunteer hours. Join programming that can help the community. It's something that can uplift others, and it's something that makes you feel good. Not only that you're helping others, but you're pushing your community to be better. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I would just say the same kind of thing. Like Kaylah's been saying this whole time, it can be anything. Start small, give your time, give your energy, give your talents. And you are a philanthropist. You might not know it, so go around and tell everyone that you're a philanthropist.
I think I've learned that you could donate to anything. I mean, if you want to donate to engineering, like you said, they could donate. If you want to do arts and crafts, it's big variety. And I know you get probably a lot of different kind of people that want to donate, willing to help out the community and everyone.
Yeah, what I would like people to leave with is exactly what you guys have all said, but philanthropy isn't for the uber rich. Philanthropy is for everyone.
Thank you, Kaylah,
Thank
for
you for
joining
tuning
us.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Of course.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.